could get this. If a red shirt, Sean Bean, a black guy, Steven Seagal's new bride, generic orcs, and Kenny all walk into a movie scene, who dies first?
Well, shit.
I love Riley stealing quotes from stupid-ass country songs that are inspirational and just posting them all over Instagram. Ramrod 2. Phillips Oldsmobile.
And welcome to episode 4 of the Enthusicast.
I guess so, is it? Come with me and you'll be in a world of OSHA violations. That's beautiful. Yeah, episode 4. So what are we talking about? You're talking about Hondas. I'm talking about Oldsmobiles because this is what we do best, is learn stupid shit that nobody's ever going to care about the cars we love.
And I'm going to start out by saying 80s and up Hondas for me. I don't know the whole...
I don't mean to interrupt, but could you scroll down like a half an inch? I think that's the new Cadillac V8. Yes, it is. So... they saying that's the first Cadillac V8 since the North Star, which is absolutely bullshit, untrue, and it has to do with this conversation right now. The last time Cadillac was allowed to design its own engine was the 4.1, 4.5, and 4.9 liter,
right?
As well as the 6 liter, the 368 V864 hunk of shit that I actually kind of have a soft spot for. Plastic valve covers leak like a screen door on a submarine. So this new twin-turbo V8, they're saying is the first Cadillac-only engine, Cadillac-designed engine since the North Star, which is bullshit because Oldsmobile designed and produced the North Star. After Oldsmobile went out in 2004 or was beheaded, they Cadillac, or by that time it was just GM, it's all the same shit now, took over the full production of the engine. But Cadillac has not designed an engine for itself since the 4.9. 4.1, 4.5. They're all shit boxes. Heads were built by Pontiac, I believe. I think. Not sure. Anyway, yeah, that was the last time Cadillac got to design their own engine. Not the North Star.
So, wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, Hondas. You were talking. So you are a Honda man. I am not particularly a Honda man.
I am an 80s and up Honda man.
Mostly because Fast and Furious and stupid-ass Ricer... what do you call those? Rice mirrors? Rice boy mirrors? What are those called?
What are you talking about?
Those big-ass mirrors that go across, like, the whole length of the...
Hey, those are very nice. I don't have one.
I was going to put one in the Cutlass, actually.
Yeah?
I had one, and then my dad threw it away.
Aw.
It was a junk pile, so he also threw away my fan shroud and my fan, and now she runs at, like, 230.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Hondas. I know I would like to think I know more than the average person, but not more than the average car enthusiast. You, however, know your shit when it comes to Honda. So please, enlighten us with as much as you know about Honda and its history, or as little as you know about its history.
As little as I know about its history. I don't know a lot about their history.
The early roots. I know, we just talked about this outside a minute ago. I know that one of Honda's first cars, like the N600, I think, was one of their first cars. It was a motorcycle with a car body strapped to it. It's like a go-kart. But it sold well, and it didn't crash well, and it had a motorcycle engine. But after that, before that or after that, I don't really know a whole lot about Hondas. I know some of their cool stuff in the 80s, but please enlighten us all about Hondas. Hopefully we will all learn something today. I forgot to say, this is the Enthusicast, episode 4, talking about Hondas, talking about Oldsmobiles. I'm Andy.
I'm Jacob. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but...
that is if we don't go crazy about it. But let's do it. So, please, enlighten us all about Hondas.
Hondas. Every time...
He said, opening up the Wikipedia page on Hondas.
Yes, this is very true. But, sorry for clipping, by the way, everyone. Beware headphone users, because this one, we just don't give any shits.
Oh, I've been sitting a little too close to the microphone and talking too goddamn loud and too goddamn fast, but fuck it.
I'll put it at half speed for you guys. Anyways.
Wow, that's a sweet, what do you call that?
Waveform. All right.
I wonder if I can make it shaped like a dick.
So, Andy.
No, damn it.
So,
I'm going to learn how to do that. I'm going to have to find out exactly what sound makes a dick-shaped waveform.
So, everybody who thinks Hondas, not everybody, but most people who think Hondas, unless you're a Honda enthusiast, or unless you don't mind your Hondas, the first thing you think when you hear Honda is, oh, fucking ricers. Mm-hmm. Probably. You're thinking the big wings, the fart cans.
Big ol' wang.
Yeah, fart cans. Fucking people downshifting from second instead of into third. Like idiots. So downshifting into first. The money shift. Stuff like
money
that.
Shift.
Idiot drivers. You get the
ground
idea.
effects, slammed, pulling into parking lots sideways.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. So
handbrake turn, break dance into the club, that kind of guy.
Yeah. But that's not, I like to think Honda's a car brand just like every other car brand. And every
I
car
prefer
brand.
Honda to Toyota.
Yeah. Every car brand's got their negative connotations. They have their group of die-hard weirdos. They have their group of, enthusiasts. They have their group of, haters, all that type of stuff. So I'm
fumbling around with pens and papers and writing things.
Andy just doesn't care about how loud it is. But I am...
Venus. Yeah, I don't care.
I've had...
That's a good one. That one's actually almost shaped like a dick. Holy hell.
It looks even
Turns
a
out
little bit of...
Yeah, the trick is to... Wow. Yeah, the trick is to just say penis and sing it, and you can get a dick-shaped waveform.
All right, so I've had... Let's see.
I'm sorry, I saw it. Go on, I saw something hilarious.
I've had like 4 or 5 Hondas.
Hondas? Oh my god, that's beautiful. So this is you can probably find it on Google or something and put it into the video. Most of you have probably recently seen. Actually, by the time this comes out, this may not be recent, unless you want to put this one up second or something. A video of a white Corvette just spanking a white Dodge Demon, and the first picture is the Demon. Yeah, it's fine. Second is the Corvette starting to gap the Demon, and it's a sad Demon face. And then the last one is the vet having like a bus on the Demon. You know what? We're just gonna have to show it in the video. It's beautiful. I should not be scrolling through my phone while we're doing this.
But I have
back to Hondas.
I've had 4 or 5 different Hondas, mostly Civics, but I've always had a soft spot for Accords. But I've had.
It's just the 4-door, the Accord and the Prelude, the 2-door Accord, isn't that basically the same? It's just a pop-up headlight.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I had an '88 Civic 4-door automatic. Mm. That thing was slow.
That was the blue one, wasn't it?
It was red.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the one that everybody said was a tampon. You could attach a string to it.
Oh, yes.
Remember
okay,
it?
I remember.
It was base model, no back seat.
That was like when I first barely met you. You had that. I vaguely remember it. Okay, yes. Now I remember that car.
So it was an automatic. It was the EF
I remember
chassis code. Yep. And then, let's see. I had a...
Like that black, what was it, 94?
I had a 97, or it was a 98 with a 99 front end, which the front end's different, but...
Only a Honda guy would notice.
98 2-door Civic that had the motor swapped. It was my buddy owned it, and it had a fat eBay turbo on it. Mm-hmm. Did it for them sweet gains, bro, huh?
Did it blow up?
No. He ran it with the turbo and then put the turbo on that green Civic he had. Or no, the silver one. The silver one with the black fenders.
Yeah.
That eBay turbo and motor, it all went in there. Or no, not the motor, but anyways, he took the turbo off, put it on that car. But the Civic that car was a good car. It was beat up. I mean, this thing had been like totaled 5 or 6 times.
The black one?
Yeah.
Really?
The whole passenger side was made out of Bondo. It was bad. It had everybody kept asking if it was an SI because they had an EM1 trunk lid and all that, just because the trunk lid got screwed up and somebody happened to have a black trunk lid from an SI. Mm-hmm. So it was all right. It was a non-VTEC, just, it had Prelude seats from a 91 Prelude that were welded in there. So it was just, it was crap. But
they were non-adjustable, weren't they? Or did they still adjust?
They didn't adjust. They were welded in there.
Because I remember driving it like an ass because
the seat,
you keep your seat further back than I do.
Yeah, but I've always had a soft spot for Hondas. They're easy to work on. They're kind of easy to work on. Nothing's easy for
I've
me.
never encountered a car that was easy to work on.
But I've also had a couple of Accords. I actually traded that Civic I was just talking about for a 91 Accord that had an H swap.
That was a shit box.
Oh, man. I was driving back. For
bought it?
anybody who's familiar with the Nevada area, I was driving back from Reno.
I thought you got it in Sacramento.
Nope. I was driving back from Reno. I got it in Reno. And I was coming over the Immigrant Summit, and it blew the timing belt tensioner. And if anybody knows about H motors, that's a common issue. They have hydraulic automatic timing belt tensioner.
Ew.
And they just go out. And so, boom, bent the valves, all sorts of stuff. And I had to drive it all the way home like that, which was terrible. And so I put
At least you weren't terribly far.
I put a manual tensioner in there to pull the motor out in my driveway. So that was fun. But then I
Did
just
you
got
give it new valves?
no. I just drove it like that,
God.
and then I sold it for $300.
That was quite the hit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How much did you pay for the black Civic?
$700.
$400.
But even with the bent valves, that car was quick because those H motors are rated for 220 horsepower. So 220 horsepower in an Accord.
And what would that have come from?
Prelude.
Prelude?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would come from a 4th gen Prelude, I believe. So 92 to 97 Prelude, I think. So
I think before we go any further, everybody already knows, I think, for the most part. Most people already know. But I think we need to talk about the Honda of Hondas, the holy of holies, the VTEC. So, clipping a little bit. Oh, maybe not. So VTEC is what does it stand for? Valve timing.
It's variable.
You have
valve
it right there in the
valve,
center of the page, right there. To your
variable
right.
valve
To your
timing
right,
and
to your
electronic
right,
lift.
Right, up, right there. What does it stand for?
Variable valve timing and electronic lift control.
Okay, so what happened? Well, the early ones aren't electronic; they're hydraulic.
Yeah,
they have a little oil pressure based pin. So what happens with a Honda is, for each lobe on the cam,
there's a second.
Or for each cylinder, you have, let's say for a single cam anyway, you have 3 rocker arms, and those 3 rocker arms are independent of each other, and they all ride on different cam lobes.
profile, yeah.
So you have the 2 outside lobes or rocker arms are the standard regular grind on the cam. The one in the center is a much larger,
more aggressive,
lobe, a much higher profile. And so what happens is when the oil pressure goes up, at least on the early cars, the oil pressure drives a little pin through all 3 of them. So the 2 rocker arms on the outside are forced to move at the lift of the center rocker arm or center cam lobe, which is that much higher profile. So then it's forcing the valves to open much longer, much wider.
Yep.
Not wider, much taller.
Yeah.
Higher, lifter.
And if anybody
liftier.
watches Donut Media, he did what's his name on there, did a great explanation of VTEC, which I actually I'll probably link that in the description of this video because
he makes some good shit.
It's hilarious, by the way.
Shameless plug. He makes some awesome stuff.
He says
some of his facts aren't completely correct,
Yeah.
but that's because I'm on some cars because I'm the only person in the world that's anal about Malaise era shit. But
the way he put it was, you got the regular normal lobes for driving around getting fuel economy, and then you got that more aggressive lobe that turns out to be a fucking fire-breathing dragon
yeah,
for kicking ass and taking names,
which is why you'll hear
scaring the shit out of grandma.
That's why you'll hear Hondas drive past you and go, "Whoa," because
My car
it's just getting so much more lift.
You can hear it hit VTEC pretty damn good. So
I just want to put a low pressure pin in it and get VTEC at like $2,000.
well, my car is electronic. I think it's oil pressure and electronic. It has oil pressure. VTEC solenoid is on the back of the motor.
Oh, so it's that. So the oil
right
pressure gives
on
it
the
to the
head,
solenoid, and the solenoid gives it to the cam, or gives it to the rockers.
Yeah,
Or
and
sticks it to it.
And that's why you can actually program them to hit VTEC at different times.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can get the Hondata and all those different ECUs. It's like you can also get them programmed in 2-step, stuff
So
like
VTEC
that.
is a very cool variable valve timing that is basically
now
just designed for sounding, bitchin', and making power.
Yeah.
VTEC is no matter how many other names other companies can call it, like they try to give them catchy names. Mitsubishi calls theirs Myvec.
Yeah.
You can't beat VTEC. It's just they make car parts. They make sweet cams and children's toys,
Yeah.
baby monitors and shit.
So, and phones.
Really?
House phones.
Oh yes.
Yeah. But that's, yeah, so I mean.
Not to be confused with the V chip.
Yeah. So Honda's, everybody's got their reservations about them.
You've seen that episode of Futurama, right? Where
I have not.
Oh well, there's one where the V chip satellite collides with another satellite, and it turns into the names fall off, and it turns into V-Giny. I'm gonna have to find that.
But yeah, Hondas are. If you're young or if you're any age and you're just wanting to get a car just to mob around town,
it's the modern hot rod.
Yeah,
it really is. They're cheap. They're easy. They're cool to
cheap.
Make fast.
And the hard part is finding a cheap, good example of one, because especially Civics, because most Civics are bought by 16-year-olds, fart cans put on them, and they're riced out, or they try to street race them, and they blow them up. And I'm not trying to offend anyone who may have been that person, but
we've all been there.
That's
I've
just what
done some
happens.
stupid shit to some cars.
And every Civic you buy, you got to look at, like, that's some tips for buying Hondas, specifically Civics, is you need to pop the hood and look at the alignment of the hood latch and stuff like that, because a lot of Hondas have been rear-ended or ran into stuff, have been wrecked and have been fixed in their day. And so a lot of those, the hoods won't line up, stuff like that, and you have to get a whole new core support if you want it to look anything but any way decent. And I've got friends who used to dabble in, I've got friends who actually do dabble in the Honda stuff, but it's gotten to the point now where I feel like I've kind of gotten past their level. I'm not trying to be rude, but they're the kind of people who are just like, fuck it,
daily race car.
Yeah, nothing lines up. Who gives a shit? I don't give a shit. My, half of my interior is missing. I don't care.
It's the roadkill for
I'm a bit of
don't get it right, get it running.
I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and like my car right now, like I said, I have a '95 Civic EX. This is VTEC 1.6 D16 Z6 engine, and for the chassis code people out there, it's an EJ1, so it's a 2-door coupe, basically.
A correct number of door.
Yeah, so it's a EJ1.
Sorry, I'm prejudiced.
It's red. It's actually SI red, but it's faded. So it's Moreno or whatever it is, red. There's a name for it. But it's a good little car. The interior is mint in my car, which is crazy. Usually they're destroyed. The radios have been torn out 7 times. My car appears to be what it had once been a one-owner car, because there was owned by the same person for a long time, because the original airbox is in it. The engine hasn't been messed with.
That stupid little sucker on the end of the intake is
the
still
little
on there. Air horn thing.
The little it even had the little nipple that goes over the little cover that goes over the clutch master slave cylinder nipple.
Yeah, the bleeder valve.
Bleed valve. Yeah.
Yeah.
It even has the ones on the brake bleeders too.
calipers.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, and but it's got some cancer. It's got some the fender well cancer, so I'm not sure if I want to fix it right now or what I'm going to do, but it needs rings because it's smoking.
So let's talk about Honda's Honda in the 80s. They did give us some interesting stuff. First gen SI, which I don't know what that's supposed to stand for.
Super interesting.
Super interesting. Yeah, so the SI came out in '84, correct? It was only available in white,
CRX?
white, red. No, the Civic SI.
Oh, yeah.
Hatchback.
Yeah.
Big greenhouse.
Sorry, I was
only-
thinking of the CRX.
Only pull up the picture.
I know what you're talking about. There's one in town.
Yeah, there's a red rusty ass one in town. They were only available in red, white, and black, I believe. Maybe silver was available. I think they're sweet. They make like 100 horsepower, but I remember it's like 120 horsepower or 110. But I remember Forza having it listed improperly as 100 horsepower.
Slightly taller dual rear cam engine.
Really? I didn't know they had a. I didn't know they had a.
They are probably
122 horsepower, 0 to 69 flat, and the so
Civic CRX SI. I was
and the
right.
CRX SI. Yes, there was one. 91 horsepower. Wow.
Featured a fuel-injected 1.5 liter EW3 engine making 91 horsepower.
That's beautiful. My Scirocco makes 3 more than that. Ooh, the Civic Wagon. I like the CRX, but too bad they're all gone.
There's a very nice one at H&H.
That was my neighbor's old car that used to have flames on it.
Oh.
Okay, black with the...
Look at those wheels.
I absolutely hate those wheels.
They're not even. They're not even.
No, it's just...
Where?
What was something... I like that Audi back there. What the hell is that? Is that a Renault Delphine back there?
What?
That white one.
This one?
Yeah, that looks like an old Renault Delphine.
That looks like an old Mercedes.
That's a Volvo, sir.
Is it a Volvo?
Yeah, it has to be. Nope, that's an Audi.
This one right here?
Mm-hmm. Quad headlights. It appears to be the four-door sedan. The Audi, what the hell's that called?
That's a Volvo.
Audi 80?
I know that's a Volvo.
Oh, yeah, that's totally late 90s.
That's an old Audi up there.
I like that red Audi, though. That's pretty cool. We'll have to pull this picture up for him. A Civic Wagon. My brother had a 84 Civic Wagon. 5-speed, 1.5 carbed motor. Blew the head gasket, so he replaced the head gasket and then tried to put a Schittelbrock 4-barrel on it. That didn't work because he just tore the whole car apart and ripped out all the vacuum shit in the process and the carb and everything. And then he was like, "How do I put it back together?" and slapped an Edelbrock on it. And
Did it run?
fuck no, of course it didn't run. You try putting an Edelbrock on a Honda and see what happens.
4-wheel drive.
Oh, yes, that's right. There was a 4-wheel drive. So, yeah, I think Honda in the 80s, that was when they really got put in the map. Because earlier than that, it was like the N600. There was the S800, which I think was a cool, sporty little convertible.
79. You've seen like the 78, 79 Accord?
Yes.
There's one in town. Those are classy looking cars to me. They were very nice.
It's like
they had a little rack on the
Toyota
back.
Corona.
Yep.
It's very classy, small.
They have fender mirrors?
Some of them, not U.S. So Honda really got put on the map in the late 70s with fuel crisis and everything, and people decided to go to more...
conservative.
Yeah, more modest cars, smaller cars, smaller engines, less power, better fuel economy.
People are moving away from
trucks, et cetera. Muscle cars, dude. Muscle cars were dirt cheap in the late 70s. You could get like a '68 Hurst Olds for like $500, which that sucks now. That's a $50,000 car now.
There's the chassis codes AG, AH, AJ, AK, 18, AU. Mine's an EJ1, so they have AJ. So like AJ1, AJ2.
Right. So Honda in the 80s, they gave us things like VTEC, and they made it, I think, as far as making the people's sporty car, I would have to the early Civic. Ooh,
first generation
4-door. My God, that looks terrible.
First generation.
I believe they have reversed hinge
Second
hoods.
gen.
Oof. I like how all the pictures on Wikipedia are just ones that are beat to shit that they found on the street.
Here's the one I had.
So Honda, I think the Civic Si, these all cars, Civic Si, Golf GTI, those are some of the most, to me, influential cars of the 80s. Turbo Buick, that gave us sequential injection, turbocharging. Honda gave us VTEC and made sporty small cars fun. I would argue that Volkswagen did it better, but to each his own. There's Honda guys out there that'll get pissed, but fuck them. I think Volkswagen did it better. So then on to the 90s, Honda's I forgot the Honda City.
Oh yeah,
that's what it is. The Honda
bike.
So it came with a little itty bitty motorbike that would fold up and fit perfectly in the back as long as you didn't have literally anything back there. The City would haul your little bike around. You park your car and then ride around on your little bike. So I think that's cool. That's them just being funny, being crazy. I don't think we got the City here, did we?
No,
In the
I
States?
don't believe so.
Okay. So in the 90s, Honda got better and better.
Oh yeah.
The cars looked more modern-ish. They looked like pretty much anything you'd expect out of the 90s.
Yeah.
But VTEC got better. Twin cams got more and more common. They got faster. They made more power, and they started competing with other people. The SI got really cool.
Oh yeah.
And it lasted until 2000? When they switched body style to the newer one in 01?
They had an SI all the way up. An SI?
Well, yes. They had an SI, but I mean Civic itself. Civic changed body styles in 2000.
Yeah, basically, 92 to 2000 underpinnings are pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
The body
they changed like fenders and headlights and
shit. Well, the body look is different, completely different. Like my car's a 5th gen, and that one I had, the black one, is a 6th gen. That was a 98. So a lot of, even 88 to 2000, a lot of the parts are the same from those Civics. Like, for instance, like suspension pieces. A lot of engine stuff's interchangeable, stuff like that. But the seats are interchangeable, that type of crap. Although the newer Civic's a little bit bigger. The next generation, I think, is a little bit bigger than mine inside. And then they went to, they changed the body style to the EM2, which nobody likes. The one that has the D17 that has coil pack injection, or coil pack
ignition.
I
like that body. 01 to 07? 04?
05.
I like that car. I in a 2-door, I do not mind that body. 4-door, like Fausto's car, I'm not a fan.
It is a stick, though.
Yeah, it is a stick. That is pretty nice.
Then
I think it's VTEC too, but he never goes over like $2,000 in that thing. He babies that car.
No, I don't. Yeah, no, it's not VTEC.
It's not?
No.
Oh, okay.
Fun fact, I don't know if this is accurate on the newer models, but most, going by trim level, usually only the EX models have VTEC. So that would be sunroof. These cars came with, their trim levels were very predictable. They didn't have options. You could not get an LX with a sunroof. Mm-hmm. You can only get an EX with a sunroof. EX just had a sunroof.
And then it wasn't that much more expensive.
And it had the VTEC,
anything else.
And like my car.
So a lot of them were made that way. A lot of them have sunroofs.
The only option my car has, for instance, there's a bunch of different versions of mine. There's a DX base model, LX, EX. There's also a VH or a VX and a CX. The VX and the CX, I believe, or the VH and the CX. I don't know. They are very, very light. They have no AC. They have no radio. Some of them have a radio delete.
So it's the stripper.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have no back seat, stuff like that. They were just economy cars.
And I bet those are all
Some of them, I think, have a D14.
There was a Chevy Cobalt in like 06, 07. Mr. Regular did a review on one once.
Yeah.
That was like this economy model that got you no AC, it got you manual windows, no back seat, like. It was basically, they didn't have to sell them.
Yeah.
GM just needed to build something to make because of federal regulations for fuel mileage.
Yeah.
And because at that time, like 05, 06, all they made was crap, and
Yeah.
all they sold were trucks. So they had to have something to bring that gas mileage a little bit farther up as far as the average goes. So they came up with this weird Cobalt that had no options.
And like my car, you would think my car has all the options, which is not that many.
Do you have power mirrors in that thing?
I do not have power mirrors. Those were, I believe, those were a JDM only option.
Really?
Power folding mirrors. Oh no, I have power mirrors.
That's what I mean.
I do have power mirrors, but
adjustment.
they don't work because some asshat cut the wires. But they. Can
you at least manually move them?
Yes. My car, in terms of options, got power mirrors, cruise, power windows, power locks. It has tweeters, so it has a 6-speaker sound system instead of 4. None of the other ones have that. And it has a sunroof, and it has AC. Other than that,
one of the best stock shifters I've ever felt as well.
Oh yeah, it's got a very nice shifter.
If it is stock.
It is stock.
Okay.
I looked at. When I was under there.
It's beautiful. It's very precise. It's very notchy.
Honda shifters are like that though.
Yeah.
You know which gear you're in.
Toyota shifters, they've always had a problem where they're rubbery. And
they're
just shitty. And the new ones are like that too. Water-cooled Volkswagens are the same way. They're just rubbery.
Hondas, you just know what gear you're in. Mm-hmm. For instance, when I drove that Plymouth Sundance, I couldn't tell what fucking gear I was in. It was literally a shot in the dark. You were just
there is no detent.
No,
it's just
there wasn't.
aim and fire.
Yeah.
And that's the way my Super Beetle is. My Super Beetle has a much taller shifter, but it's also a lot more loose. And my standard Beetle shifter, like I will drive the Super Beetle, and I'm just like, well, there's a gear up here somewhere. There's one back there somewhere. I'm just gonna find whatever.
I tightened my shifter up a little bit.
And
when I was under there,
the standard Beetle shifter is fabulous. Clicky, clunky, notchy, doesn't grind gears, but you know where first is, you know where second is, you know where every gear is except for reverse, which I have not driven an air-cooled Volkswagen that was easy to find reverse. Like they never, like you can, of course it's a Volkswagen, it's pushed down on the shifter and towards U, I believe.
Yeah. Speaking of,
And it's like, you can push down, you feel the detent, and you're like, yeah. And you start to go back and try and find reverse, and it doesn't do shit, and you're like, maybe. And then you start letting on the clutch, and if it pops out of gear, it pops out of gear.
speaking of vague shifters, though, 2011 to 2016 Elantras.
I don't remember it being terrible.
It was there. I accidentally shifted that car from first to third like 3 times, and I fucking killed it. I killed it once because I thought it was in first, and I had it in third, and I tried to take off, and it was just like.
I did that in the Corolla when I first learned. No, I did that in the Focus when I first learned how to drive stick. Because the shifter was so short that I was like, and I didn't get the whole home position is in between third and fourth.
Oh,
I never got that until I started actually driving stick for a while.
Real quick before Andy goes on to talk about his Oldsmobiles, I'm going to let him.
I was going to make a remark about what Honda gives us now, and that is the Mac Daddy Award for the worst ass possible, and that's the new Type R.
Yeah.
It's almost juke level.
It's a bit,
I think it's worse than juke.
It's a bit crazy. But, I forgot where I was going with that.
Something about Hondas.
I was talking about vague
shifters.
Vague shifters.
Looks like an old Ford truck. First is in the dash, second's out back somewhere.
That's true. You smash your hand on the dashboard every time you go all the way.
If you want first, you're gonna hit the damn dash.
In Zach's Green Civic,
you're punching that
first
stereo
gear,
3 inches in.
First gear, it would hit the dashboard every time. Or sorry, third would hit the dashboard where the radio was. The little deal. It would hit it. You'd smash your finger every damn time. Stupid. If you try to bang gears, you're punching the dash.
Yeah, I've punched the dash in old Ford trucks before. 98 F-150 Vegas shifter ever that I've ever driven so far.
Yeah.
It was a 98 base model 4.6 with a 5-speed, and it was terrible. The clutch was dead. It was gone.
That's what I was.
That may have had something to do with it, but the shifter was terrible.
That's what I was going to talk about real quick. Is my hatred for electronic clutches. We're not you know what I'm talking about. Where you
clutch start cancel?
No, sorry, not electronic clutches, but the ones where the pedal is either on or off.
Oh, I get what you mean. Is where there's
Amber's Camaro was like that.
Where there's no
getting into it. You're just on or off. That is terrible.
Jeep Renegade does
like
that, but that's, to me, I think that's only because they have the hill start assist that you cannot disable, which after a while of driving it, you get used to it. But when you first drive one, it's weird because that stupid-ass hill start thing will get you every time if you've never driven a car that has that.
What's it do? Does it kill it?
It holds the brakes for you. So by the time you start to feel the engagement point, the car's not going anywhere. So you can't actually feel the engagement point.
So you're just like, whoa!
Because you don't feel the car moving.
Oh.
Some cars will let off of the
brake as you...
Some cars will let off of the brake if you let it sit for a while.
Oh, gotcha.
If you wait like 10 seconds or so.
You should be able to turn shit like that off. Just like you need to be able to turn off the auto stop and start function.
You know the BMW 1 Series M Coupe?
Yeah.
Or M2 Coupe, sorry. The BMW M2, it has automatic throttle blip rev matching. Like the car does it for you.
Huh.
It knows what gear you're in, and let's say you're in 5th and you want to drop down to 3rd, the car will automatically hit the gas for you.
Oh.
And the only way to turn that up, which to me is cool, but every time I get a perfect rev match downshift, it's so satisfying.
Yeah, I do that in my car, and I'm like, oh yes.
And the only issue with it on those BMWs is you cannot turn it off unless you turn off track and stability. So you either get to shift yourself and kill yourself, or you just live with it and let the car make you look like a badass when you roll into the meet.
Right.
Yeah, so next thing is, so this is our areas of expertise. You're a Honda guy. I'm not necessarily a Honda guy, but I am a very large Oldsmobile fan. And brief history, Oldsmobile is at the time of its passing was the oldest car company in the world that was still producing cars. They were founded in 1894 or 1897.
Really? I didn't know they went back that far.
1897 was when they. Now, Ford made one of his first cars called the Quadricycle, and I believe that was in 1896. However, his car company was not founded until 1905. The other thing that is also credited to Ford is the assembly line, which was done by Oldsmobile. They were the first ones to use the assembly line. Henry Ford had so much money, and he perfected the process. So he was not the first one to do it. He was the second or third one to do it. So Oldsmobile was founded by a man named Ransom Eli Olds, and which coincidentally is REO. REO Speedwagon, the band, is named after a car called the REO Speedwagon. REO is Ransom Eli Olds, and that was a truck company that he founded after he had sold Oldsmobile to General Motors.
Oh, okay.
Oldsmobile was General Motors' technology division.
When did Oldsmobile get sold to General Motors?
I believe it was sometime in the late teens or early 20s.
Okay.
I'm not completely sure on that. I don't know a ton about Olds between 1920 and 41, but I know during the war, REO did eventually stop production in, I believe it was late 30s, 39, 40, something like that.
World War II here.
So World War II, General Motors, or Oldsmobile, under the supervision of General Motors, created something called the Hydromatic. It was the first fully automatic transmission, where you did not have to shift gears yourself. There were some cars.
This name's familiar.
Hydromatic, yeah. You have your Turbo 350 is the Turbo Hydromatic. The early Hydromatics are often called Slim Jims because of their shape and size. They're very long and not very wide. But that Slim Jim automatic, the original Hydromatic, had no park. It was reverse, neutral, drive, and then of course the manual selection of the gears if you so chose. But you would still park the car in neutral with the brake on, just like a manual.
Oh, okay.
Or like me in a manual. I don't like leaving cars in gear. It just bothers me. But it's also a good incentive to make sure your parking brake works. So the automatic transmission made it to market right after the war, 46, 47. It made it into the cars. Chrysler at the time did have a semi-automatic transmission. Another side note, Chrysler was the first automatic transmission. The Torque Flight was the first automatic transmission that could shift faster than a human could. So while Oldsmobile was the first true automatic, they were not the fastest automatic until the late 50s. And Chrysler had mid-50s. Chrysler's Torque Flight was faster, but by the 60s, 70s, all automatic transmissions were generally just as fast as one another, and blah blah blah, whatever. Oldsmobile also had some firsts at the time that Buick was creating the Fireball, I believe it was called, was a overhead valve inline 8-cylinder, and overhead valves was just the shit because everything before that was a F-head or a flathead, and F-head and flathead are two entirely different things. Flathead is also known as a side valve. The deck surface is also the mating surface for the valve. Okay. The flat side of the valve is the deck. So the piston sits right next to the valves, and the cam sits in the block like a regular inline engine, a pushrod inline engine anyway, and the head is very thin. It's only about an inch tall, so that's why it's called a flathead. And it was used very widely. Willys Jeep, yes, it is pronounced Willis. I say Willys. Who cares? Doesn't matter. That was the Go Devil engine. That was a flathead that made its way up into the mid 50s. No, early 60s, I believe. The 134, the engine that won the war, as they say. So Oldsmobile, anyway, was the technology division. They had overhead valve V8s. And of course V8s were not unheard of. Cadillac had the V8 1216. Their whole ad campaign and big ass engines. There were flathead V8s. Ford's V8, something like 38 horsepower, something like that, which was a big freaking deal. So anyway, they had overhead valve V8s and they had automatic transmissions. And then eventually Buick got an overhead valve V8. And they were the way to go. As I mentioned in our last one, I talked about George Hurst and his ability to swap overhead valve V8 engines into cars like Lincolns and Fords and things that came with flathead engines. Overhead valve is a far superior design, and there's a reason we still use it. Whether that be overhead cam or not. Oldsmobile was not the first overhead valve engine, no, but it was the first mass-produced American V8 overhead valve.
Okay.
The first one that was attainable by most people. And this went on for a while, and Oldsmobile in the late 50s, when everybody started having technology things, Olds came out with the J2, 1957. This was when the horsepower wars started. Chevrolet's 283, first engine to make 1 horsepower per cubic inch. It was, if you got it with the triple carbs in the Batwing, you could also get it with Rochester fuel injection. Now, here's the story. Oldsmobile, because they were the technology division, in 1957, they were supposed to get the Rochester continuous flow port fuel injection. Instead, it was given to Chevrolet because Corvette in 1957-58 got a V8, or 1955, sorry, got a V8, the 265.
Right.
But in 57, it got the 283 V8, the newer, bigger one that gave you 6,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
And Chevy opted to give, General Motors opted to give Chevrolet's new baby, the sports car, the fuel injection, as well as its Bel Air, the same fuel injection, as opposed to Oldsmobile getting it. So Oldsmobile had to improvise. So they decided, fuck it, let's put more than 1 carburetor on it. So they gave it 3. The J2 is a 3 deuces setup, 3 2-barrel carburetors.
Wow.
They didn't make a ton of them, but they made enough that it worked, that people figured it out.
Yeah.
Chrysler also experimented with fuel injection, and they all got recalled because they were crap, and they got sent back to the factory to have them fitted with dual quads. Chevy's 283 also had dual quads. Or a single 2-barrel or a single 4-barrel, I believe. The Rochester 4G, that was the first 4-barrel carburetor. Multiple carburation was not completely unheard of. A lot of companies used triple carbs on their 6 and 8 cylinders. Some of them used 2-barrel carbs, some of them used 3 2-barrels. But the Rochester 4-barrel was the first 4-barrel carburetor. And now in the early 60s, Buick had made something that was insane at the time. It was the all-aluminum 215 cubic inch V8. It made 185 horsepower or so. It gave you a decent red line, and it was based on the nailhead engine. The nailhead engine is called that because the valve covers sit perfectly flat because of the head. It's still a standard overhead valve configuration, but the valve covers actually sit on top perfectly straight in line, so that's what they call it, a nailhead. And they had taken that engine and made it much smaller, made it all out of aluminum, and it was sweet. It was bitchin'. And in turbocharged form, as I mentioned in our last episode, I talked about this engine very briefly. It was a carbureted carbureted turbocharged engine that made 215 horsepower. Again, 1 horsepower per cubic inch. At the crank with no alternator, no AC, no nothing.
Right.
But it didn't matter. That was what people wanted at the time. And so that engine in turbocharged form made it into the Oldsmobile Turbo Jetfire, which had a very early water meth system.
I've heard of that.
And people were not bringing their car back to the dealership to have the water meth system serviced or to have it refilled because they didn't understand what it was and that it was truly needed. So they kind of blew up and they had kind of a bad reputation. But it worked, and it set a precedent. It said, we can do this. We take aircraft technology, because a lot of aircraft were supercharged or turbocharged radial engines. It works. It works on cars. It works on regular engines. And again, going on this whole technology division thing, mid-60s, Mr. John Z. DeLorean, engineer at Pontiac, or I believe he was CEO of Pontiac at that time, something like that. He took a Tempest, and instead of, because there's this internal ban against racing, about actual motor racing, he decided to take it to the street. He took a Tempest, it was his daily driver. He put a big engine, the 389, out of a full-size Parassine or Bonneville, and slapped it in there with a 4-speed Hurst shifter, nice wheels, dual exhaust, triple carbs, and that was it. The muscle car was born. He drove it to work. The engineers loved it. Their original production was limited to, I believe, 3,000 units, and they all sold out, and they had like 5,000 orders. So Oldsmobile entered it in also 1964 or 65. 64. with the 442, 4-barrel, 4-speed,
Oh, yeah.
dual exhaust. There was a 4-door. There was a 4-door 442 that was used by the police department. I know an ad that was something about if they trust it, you can trust it. I have seen an ad for it. They did make very few of them. And eventually, by I would say 1967, 68, it meant 400 cubic inches, 4-barrel carburetor, dual exhaust. Because at that time, the 442, you just got the 400. That's what you had. Because at that time, General Motors, before 1970, in a mid-size car, they were limited to 400 cubic inches. So Pontiac got a 400, Olds got a 400, Chevy got a 400, or Chevy, sorry, got the 396, and what's that other one? Buick had a 400.
Yeah.
I forgot they existed. So in 1970, that ban was lifted, and after that, you see 455, 454,
Yeah.
455 Poncho, 455 Buick, as well as there was a 420 something Pontiac, 428.
Did you mention the 403?
The 403 Olds did not come out yet.
Didn't? Oh,
No,
okay.
not yet. So, in 1966, Oldsmobile came out with the first post-war front-wheel drive car. First post-war front-wheel drive production car. Dodge in the early 50s did have a front-wheel drive car where the engine was basically mounted backwards and the radiator sat at the firewall. They made like 2 or 3 of them, but it was the Dodge A990 or something like that. And that was a front-wheel drive. But anyway, the Tornado was the first post-war front-wheel drive production car from the U.S. Citroën had been doing it for a long time. The 2CV, most notably the DS, SM, things like that. And if you notice, if you look through GM history, if Oldsmobile got it, if Cadillac got something, Oldsmobile had it 2 to 3 years before.
Right.
Because they were the sort of guinea pigs. They were the technology division. Pontiac was excitement. Buick was you couldn't afford a Cadillac. Chevy was you were poor. Oldsmobile was if you wanted something new and fresh and hip and young. And you went to acid parties and had an open marriage. And
An open marriage.
you wanted something fun. You and a bunch of the neighborhood, you and the whole homeowners association went over to Jim's house to do some LSD, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
You all look like Flanders.
yeah, and in '67, Cadillac went to the same front-wheel drive. The first Tornado had 425. That was Oldsmobile's biggest engine at the time, and it was an okay engine. It was fine. It was a full-size car engine. But in 1968, they came up with the 455, and this was the new huge engine that was for full-size cars, and George Hurst decided to take it out of the full-size and put it in a mid-size Cutlass and create the Hurst Olds. And although they were not built by Oldsmobile, they were sold through Oldsmobile dealers if you so wished. They were built, I believe they were built by Cars and Concepts. I don't know if they were around by that time.
That's a similar thing that happened with the Eurosport VR.
Because I know Cars and Concepts built the 83 and 4 Hurst Olds, but I don't know, as well as some T-top cars. I'll get to that in a minute. But Oldsmobile had the front-wheel drive, the Tornado. They got the Tornado GT in 1970 that had, only way you can tell is dual exhaust. And dual exhaust with cutouts in the bumper, similar to the 442 that came with trumpet tips. That was another Oldsmobile thing. Bucktooth trumpet tips. That was like their thing for a while. Cutlass had always been a midsize, of course, but by 1973, the Cutlass, you had the introduction of the Colonnade cars. Cutlass, Monte Carlo, Buick Century, Buick Regal, Regal later on. I think Regal came out in 77. But everything downsized a little bit, but it was still huge. Not a lot of interior room, but a massive car. And Oldsmobile had to downsize too. By 1973, the 455 was making less than 200 horsepower because they also switched to net ratings at the tire as opposed to at the crank with no accessories and no transmission. So that kind of killed things a whole bunch too. And fuel crisis, Earth Day, 1970, fuel economy standards, emission standards, smog in LA, everything killed it. CARB, California Air Restrictions Board, everything. It all came together at once and hit the American auto industry hard. And I actually have an interesting story about GM and Honda that I will tell in just a moment, but as well as an interesting story about Toyota. Anyway, so in the 70s, Oldsmobile was just like everybody else. They were just trying to get into the game. They were just trying to sell some cars just like they used to back before. And they came up with, a few designs here and there, and they had to downsize. The 455 in 1976 was replaced with the 403. I believe all large displacement Oldsmobile engines, actually I believe all Oldsmobile engines, excluding the 260 and the 260 diesel, were 3.385 bore or 3.855 I'm sorry, stroke. I believe they all shared the same stroke. I can't remember. But Toronado was still front-wheel drive, same longitudinal front-wheel drive. Oldsmobile was the first to have fuel injection, electronic fuel injection. They were the first to have a talking computer. In the 79 Toronado Caliente, not unlike Chrysler's Speak and Spell that they put in the New Yorker, and I thought they had it in a couple of other cars. It uses the same voice chip as a Speak and Spell. You can make them argue with each other if you really wanted to. So you have, at the time, let's say, it's 1979, 78. Olds comes out with the Hearst Olds one more time, 1979, after it had been on hiatus since 1975. And they bring it back, they give it a 350. It is there are two cars between 1978 and 1988 that are referred to as G-bodies that ever came with anything bigger than 5 liters. And that is the 79 Hearst Olds with the 350 Olds and the Mexican export Monte Carlo SS that came with the 350.
Yep.
350 Chevy. Only two that came with more than 5 liters. And yeah, it was a sad time. It was a dark time for cars. So they had fuel injection. They had some amenities here and there. And in 1977, Oldsmobile filed a class action lawsuit against General Motors. Because at the time, they were still companies. They were still independent. They weren't all the same shit like they are now.
Yeah.
And because Oldsmobile owners were having trouble, or Oldsmobile was having trouble keeping up with demand for Olds-built engines because everybody else was using them. Buick used them. Your Buick had a 350. Cadillac Seville had a 350 Olds. Some Eldorados had Olds engines. Then there was the diesel engines, 78 to 83, pieces of crap, the D and the DX. Make good racing engines, though. DX engines, DX blocks are strong.
They can hold it.
They will take boost like a motherfucker, but they will stretch head bolts and blow injection pumps all day long. However, they filed this lawsuit because they could not keep up with demand for Oldsmobile engines in Oldsmobile cars. So General Motors opted to give them Chevy engines, and the owners, the people that were buying the cars, were pissed because they wanted an Oldsmobile, and they were mad that they got a Chevy. And there was some issue there, and I don't remember what it was, which is why, after 1977, customers had to be warned about it. They were given all of the GM literature. If you ever look at it, they will all say...
My ad that I have for that Monte Carlo says it.
They all say General Motors vehicles come equipped with engines built by various GM divisions. See your dealer for details.
What it says on that ad.
Yeah, because that's what they had to do. Because after that, Oldsmobile said, no, fuck you, because our customers are crawling up our asses because they wanted an Olds and you gave us a Chevy.
Yeah. And
after that, they had to have that printed on all of their literature. All their sales stuff, all their ads, brochures, commercials, everything. So Oldsmobile, in a way, they won a little bit, but the decline was there. It was coming. Then you have the Hearst Olds 83, 84, built by Cars and Concepts. They had a 307, 185 horsepower, lightning rods, triple shifters, which I just think are fabulous. I actually saw a guy on the forum the other day break one of his. The park reverse neutral drive, overdrive drive rod, the far left rod, broke. Just snapped at the base. I'm like, oh God, because that's $1,000 shifter or more, $1,500. You probably paid $2,000 for a new old stock set. Anyway, so Oldsmobile went into decline. The last rear-wheel drive Oldsmobile was 1987. sold as a 1988 model because of overstock. Cutlass, what was it called? Cutlass Supreme Classic. Cutlass Supreme. Cutlass. What was it? There was one that was their stupid long name. It was Cutlass Supreme Classic. Cutlass Supreme. God damn it! Cutlass Supreme Classic Brome, I believe, was the longest name.
The classic. That's a wagon, isn't it?
No, it was a two-door Cutlass.
Two-door. Two-door?
Yeah, it was just like mine. They made a whole bunch of them, so they had to sell them as 88 models, kind of like AMC did with the Eagle.
Oh, gotcha.
They sold their leftovers because production stopped, like I said, last G-body, December 14th, 87. So they were well into December when they stopped making these cars. And they had a bunch of leftovers, so they sold a lot of Oldsmobiles as 88 models and freshened them up a little bit. And so be it. That was the end of rear-wheel drive for Oldsmobile, excluding the Bravada, which is all Bravadas are all-wheel drive.
And they're also just a rebadged Blazer.
Yes, but you get
And
so
this-
much. You get digital dash, you get bucket seats,
Yeah,
console with a column shifter. Yeah, that's classy.
Pretty cool.
Leather seats. I think the Bravada is cool. The first generation Bravada is
Oh,
a
yeah.
cool car. But,
And they're so square. I love it.
yeah, and at this time you see everybody switching to front wheel drive. Everything's fuel injected. The diesel was a miserable failure.
Yeah. Most of those diesels were miserable failures.
Yeah, most people swapped them out for 455s because they were cheap at that time, and the few people that wanted to go fast wanted to go fucking fast.
Yeah, they were fucking around.
And that engine made it into more than just Oldsmobiles. It made it into Chevys, Pontiacs, Buicks, Olds, everything. It was not quite as bad as Chevy's 6.2 liter was not as bad as the Olds 350. The Chevy 6.2 is a piece of crap, but not as bad as the Olds. I will admit that. I am a genuine Oldsmobile diehard fan, but you can't hide the past. So they switched to front-wheel drive. You have some of their last innovations. The Aurora went out with a bang. V8 front-wheel drive, four-door, sporty car.
Yeah.
Nice-looking car, nice driving car, very well
Supercharged,
equipped.
right?
Nope.
No, those
just the
ones went out?
4-liter quad cam.
4 liter. Okay.
It's the North Star.
North Star, yep.
Starter underneath the intake.
I keep thinking of the 3.8 for some
Yeah, it's
reason.
a Buick L67.
Yeah.
Was the supercharged 3.8
Yep.
liter Buick engine.
That the ugly Auroras got Auroras.
No, Aurora only had the 4-liter V8.
What am I thinking of then?
Probably. Olds never got the. Well, yes, they did. The LSS had the 3.8 supercharged, the L67. There's a couple more Olds that got it. But no, Aurora was only available with the 3.5 liter baby North Star and the 4-liter V8.
Oh, a fun
There's a
fact.
guy that swaps 3.5 liters in sticks into Aleros.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they make
It's
stick
like
Aleros.
$5,000, but yeah, they made stick Aleros. Most of them were 4-bangers. I think all of them were 4-bangers.
Yeah. Fun note, real quick. The Albany Primo in Grand Theft Auto 5, the car looks like a freaking mob car. It looks like a Buick Century, kind of. If you look at the badge closely, it does say 3.8 supercharged. So it's basically that car is a supercharged 3.8 liter Buick Century, which is bitchin'.
Yeah. I've seen Cutlass Sierra.
It's also rear-wheel drive in the game.
I've seen very, very few Cutlass Sierras with the supercharged
Really?
3.8. Yes,
Oh,
mid-80s.
nice.
There's like an 85
Oh, hell yeah.
that had what it wasn't factory, but it was done.
Oh,
But,
that's cool.
They did use the 3.8.
Somebody did that in a Celebrity.
Ooh,
Somebody
that'd be cool.
did do that in a Celebrity. I
Okay.
remember seeing that in the forums.
So in 1997, I believe, at Oldsmobile's 100th anniversary, somebody somewhere leaked something and basically made everybody shit the bed because they said, "Oh yeah, Oldsmobile's done. You guys you're next. GM has decided to leave the company as it stands and let it die." And that kind of put a damper on things. So they came out with the final 500 cars, 2004, and thus was the end of production. I know a lot more than that about Oldsmobile, but that's my very, very quick history, as quick as I can possibly go. But I have two interesting stories. The one about Honda and General Motors. In 1973-ish, General Motors figured out that they could choke the shit out of the exhaust and put a catalytic converter on it, smaller heads, and all kinds of shit, detune it, lower compression, to get not good gas mileage, but lower emissions gas mileage out of a 350 Chevy. And Honda said, oh, we have this thing, it's called CVCC. It uses a pre-chamber for a much cleaner burn, and it actually is pretty damn good. And it puts out less emissions and gets better fuel economy and makes more power than a conventional systems of reducing all that shit. And GM was like, nah, fuck you, that doesn't work. So Honda bought a 73 Impala, took the 350 out of it, pulled the heads off, built CVCC heads and an intake manifold for it, put it back on the car, made more power, got better fuel economy, and less emissions than Chevy's design.
What?
It was basically the biggest fuck you. We know how to do it better than you know how to build your own shit.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
And I bet you all diehard Chevy guys would be like, what?
It failed because of one reason, and that was the federal regulation that said all cars have to have a catalytic converter. So there was no point. They said, we're already doing it this way. We can't do it. Not to mention, we can't let those damn Japs win. Yeah. So there was one of one. I think the car may have been crushed, but I have no idea. I don't know what happened to it.
Is there pictures of it anywhere?
But I'm sure you can find it. There was an article about it a while ago. I think it was on Jalopnik, probably. But yes, so Honda bought an Impala, fixed it up, and stuck it to GM hard. And it was, it's... type in Honda Chevy CVCC Impala. And I'm sure it will come up. But I found the actual test reports. I found a bunch of like printouts, like spreadsheet type things, of the actual tests, how much power it made, what the emissions were, what the fuel's consumption was. Like, I actually saw it. It was really cool. Anyway, so another one before we go. I have an interesting story about Toyota. Toyota spelled with a D, Mr. Toyota himself.
Oh, yes.
So, in 1945, of course, America bombed the shit out of Japan to end the war, sort of, at that time. Russia kicked Germany's ass, and we kicked Japan's ass. And we're still feeling the effects of that. But what happened was Mr. Toyota, I believe it was Toyota. I would have to say it was Toyota. It was either Toyota or Honda, but I believe it was Toyota. He had made some. There were some cars in the 30s, yes, but there were very few. You know what? It was Honda.
Yeah, because Toyota started making out farm equipment.
Yeah, Toyota made cars in the 30s. Very few of them.
Yeah.
But yes, it had to have been Honda. At a certain time and a certain day, he would go in and go to the barber and get a haircut. And on that day, it happened to be, he was in a part of town, and it would happen to be, I don't remember if it was Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but one of the towns was getting bombed that day, at that time. And he went in for a haircut. He could, as he was walking up to the door, he could see someone else was trying to get in front of him, and the door was closing. He put his foot in the door and got in front of the guy. And he got in, got his haircut, and he left. Not very long after that, the bomb went off, and it obliterated that barbershop. I don't know how far he had to go or how he got there to get out of the way. But if he had not stuck his foot in that door and gotten in before that other guy, we would not have Honda. Because this was way before he made cars.
Wow.
So yeah, if he had just one chaos theory, like if he had just not made that step or taken one step slower and let the guy go in front of him, we would not have Honda. And if without Honda, we wouldn't have VVT. At least by now, we probably would. But
yeah, we
mass market, probably not.
Yeah.
If you think about how many innovations and things that Honda has given us, and how many times Honda has poked at the market to move it forward or move it backward, or make other car makers build the things that they've built.
Yeah.
Without Honda, where would we be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Honda haters take note of that type of stuff.
Yeah. If he had not gotten his foot in the door, we would not have Honda.
They've done a lot for
the
whole industry.
Yeah, and I don't know how true that story is, but I believe it to be true.
Yeah.
I don't see any
Well, there's
reason
some
how it
people
could
that-
not be.
Well, there's some people in those cities that survived.
Oh yes, of course. There's some people that
Because
were
there was like ground zero, and then there was like towards the edge of it,
course.
the buildings didn't get knocked over.
of
and
course,
shit,
but that barbershop was gone.
yeah,
And yeah, that to me that's just amazing. Just how if you ever wonder about how things might be different, you know. So this one for you guys, this might be boring unless you're interested in Hondas or Oldsmobiles and you like to hear me rambling about them, because I talk too much and too fast and I have so much crap up here that I'm never going to use. But this has actually turned out to be another long one. Whatever, we're a little bit over an hour right now, but I think that's a good spot to end on a little bit of history and a little bit of a good story, you know, a nice story to tell. So, thank you all for listening. If you were interested, I hope you hopefully today learned something about Hondas and or Oldsmobiles. I'm Andy.
I'm Jacob. Be sure to follow Andy on his.
Follow me on Instagram at andy.strom97.
And then follow
follow our Instagram at Enthusicast.
Yep.
And we're here on YouTube, and hopefully soon we'll be on Shout Engine, or maybe by the time this is out we will be. Who knows?
Make sure you leave a comment.
Leave
Give me
comments, yes,
feedback,
please. Tell us what we need to do differently.
Yeah.
Tell us
Tell us to not yell into the mic.
Tell us not to scream penis at things.
Yeah.
And tell us what we should talk about. We would love to have suggestions because I am running out of fucking material. So,
Not supposed
please.
to tell the audience that. I'm just kidding. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
But stay
Thank
tuned.
you very much for listening. We will see you again.
Catch you on the flip side.